Alrighty, hello ladies, and welcome to the second part of our evolution notes video for Unit 2. So in this video, we are diving into a thing called genetic drift, and then we will also talk about this idea of Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So pardon the fact that this is all green and pink. I do not have any other colored highlighters at my apartment, but I will try to incorporate other colors as we go. So first thing that we need to do is define genetic drift. And genetic drift is the random change in allele frequency caused by chance occurrences like natural disasters. So think of things like tornadoes, wildfires, volcanoes, those type of things that occur naturally in our environments. Those can cause a change in the allele frequency in a population. So when a disaster strikes, the surviving gene pool may be different from the original population. So perhaps all of the individuals that were a specific, just for example, a specific color were hanging out closer to the volcano for whatever reason. And when the volcano erupted, all of the individuals that were near the volcano obviously died, but they all happened to be the same color, which is now going to change the overall gene pool of that population because there are going to be less of that specific colored individual. So there are two types of genetic drift. The first type is what we call the bottleneck effect, and that is when there is a change in allele frequency following a drastic reduction in population size. So many endangered species display this type of genetic drift. So the reason that we call it the bottleneck effect is because typically there will be some event that happens that causes only a few individuals to survive, like I was talking about earlier with the volcano eruption. So we can draw a storyboard for this idea. Let me go ahead and get some other colors. So let's go ahead and say that we started with a population of these cheetahs, and some of the cheetahs were orange, and some of the cheetahs were yellow. So maybe this volcano eruption caused some of these individuals to die, and this population got wiped out drastically. So I'll just write volcano, and the surviving population is now just 2 individuals. Obviously, we know these dots represent numerous individuals when we're drawing storyboards, but for our situation, we'll just say that our population started with 6 cheetahs that had different alleles, and after the volcano, only 2 cheetahs were left, and they happened to both be orange. Now, the reason that it's called bottleneck effect is if you think of if a bottle was right here and was kind of facing down like this, these alleles theoretically would fall through, and only a few of them would be able to get through the bottle. That's kind of why it's called that. So, yeah. Okay, let's move on to the founder effect. So, again, this is another type of genetic drift, and genetic drift can also occur when a few individuals colonize a new habitat. Yep, I'm spelling this right. Or are used to establish a new population. So let me break down this definition really quickly. It can happen in two different ways. Now, the founder effect, let's just define it, is a change in, again, those allele frequencies. But this time it's due to the migration of a small subgroup of a population. So let me go ahead and talk you through this section. So there are two ways that this idea of the founder effect can happen. The first is that a couple of individuals, for whatever reason, go to a different area. A lot of times we think about this as an island, which is why this drawing is here. Maybe some animals that are capable of flying fly to this island and start a new population here. Different allele frequencies, and the original population is now also going to have slightly different allele frequencies because those individuals left. The other way that this can happen is when populations or species are used to establish a new population. I don't know if you know about this, but oftentimes humans will take a specific species and put them in a different environment in order to control the population of another species. So in Michigan, they took wolves and dropped them in this new area where they normally aren't located. And they did that in order to help control the moose population. So humans can do this, and also individuals within a species can move to a new place for whatever reason, migration, whatever it might be. So if we were to draw a storyboard for this one, we would be starting out with some individuals in a population. I'm not going to use two colors for this one, but you can get the point. And we'll just say that a couple of those individuals decided to leave, and the new population would look like, so these people left, the remaining population is now just 3 shaded in and 1 not shaded in. And these guys, maybe they went over and to a new little island somewhere, and they're living their best lives. So they decided that they wanted to go to an island and hang out while the rest stayed where they were. So these guys started a new population in a new place because they migrated there. And the rest of the population obviously now has a different change in the allele frequencies, but also this new island has a change in the allele frequencies. The reason that there's a picture of the wolf down here is kind of like what I was telling you earlier, where we'll drop wolves into different populations, different areas to control other species population numbers. So let's go ahead and move to this idea of equilibrium within a population. So genetic equilibrium, let me get a new color. Genetic equilibrium is a condition in which a population's allele frequencies remain the same. Populations in this genetic equilibrium, where the allele frequencies are not changing, are not evolving. So if you remember the conditions that we talked about with natural selection, One of the things is that there needed to be variation in the traits of a population. And if we do not have variation in the allele frequencies, those variations aren't getting passed on. So evolution can't happen. Now, in 1908, Hardy and Weinberg independently, which means that they were working on this separately of each other, and then came together and figured out that this is a thing, they independently proposed 5 conditions in which populations could theoretically reach equilibrium, where their allele frequencies are not changing. So this idea of Hardy-Weinberg principle, in order to maintain genetic equilibrium, there has to be 5 things that are true, and you have to have all 5 of these things in order for this to happen. So the first is that the population has to be very large. The second is that there can be no mutations. The third is that there has to be random mating. The fourth is that there can be no immigration or emigration. And finally, no natural selection can take place. So, can populations remain constant? Is this possible? Do populations remain constant? Can you achieve genetic equilibrium? In some populations, these 5 conditions may be met for a short time, but very rarely does this happen. Therefore, populations evolve. Did I spell that right? Yes, evolve. Weird looking L, but you get the point. Populations evolve. So in this section down here, really briefly, I just want you to write down what you know to be true about natural selection. I'm going to pause the video really quickly because my dinner is ready. So let me do that. Okay, sorry, I am back. And hopefully you have created something in this section to help you remember these ideas from this unit regarding natural selection. The final portion of this is specifically just for you to remember that natural selection acts on individuals, and evolution acts on populations. That is the big idea for this unit. Those 2 things you should know. Okay, that concludes the note video for today. Really quickly, I do just want to say, I would potentially have you draw this storyboard for this new population. I just want you to be aware that that is a thing that you might need to do at some point. So these people emigrated out of their original population and into a new population. So that would be the storyboard for the population on the island. Sorry, that was random. I'm done with the notes for today. Come find me if you have any questions at all, but we will practice with this a little bit in class together.